Hi guys, this is Erica Weston with Fox Sports Midwest, and you're listening to my favorite St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio.
Hi there everyone, I'm Haley Wickenheiser, and this is Let's Go Blues Radio, Past to the Future.
And we're back with the past portion of the Let's Go Blues Radio Past to the Future. Today I'm joined by yet another Blues goaltender, former Blues goaltender, Curtis Sanford. Played for the Blues for a couple of years there, came up in 2002, 2003, played through some of the dark times in St. Louis, but always a fan favorite for some of the miraculous saves he made in that time. Curtis, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So one thing, and we were just talking about it, and I've brought this up on the show before, that you are one of the few guys to make the jump from the UHL, which is where the Missouri River Otters played, to playing in the NHL, and you actually did play with the Missouri River Otters. So I wanted to ask you about that year, 1999-2000. You play for the Owen, was it the Owen Sound Platers in the OHL, then moved on to the River Otters, then the Rochester Americans. Quite a few jumps there in one season. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting year for sure. I just finished up my junior career in Owen Sound. I played 4 years for the Platers in the OHL and just finished up my overage year and was kind of hemming and hawing about, okay, what's my next step? Started getting letters in the mail from, Canadian universities out east, and all of a sudden I got a phone call from Mark Reeds basically right after I got off the ice on my very last game. And I was in the air the next day to join the Missouri River Otters. And at that point in time, they were playing in Asheville, North Carolina. So, it was a whirlwind experience, obviously, but grateful that Mark Reeds reached out to me and offered me the opportunity to play some games there. And did well enough that I think he vouched for me with the St. Louis Blues, and Rochester Americans were on a playoff run, and we got put out in the UHL playoffs. And I think he threw my name out to, I want to say Jody Gage was the GM in Rochester at that point, and went up and backed up a little bit in the playoff run. And again, it was another great experience when I didn't think anything quite like that was particularly going to happen at that time in my career. So it was grateful for the opportunities, and again, is just trying to do my best to take advantage of those opportunities at that time.
Do you still have a River Otters jersey somewhere in your house?
I absolutely do. I have a River Otters jersey, and I think I got my first game puck, and yeah, I keep a whole bunch of things that I pick up throughout the years and different teams, and just keepsakes that maybe I'll pass on to my sons or even when they decide to have kids, maybe grandchildren.
Yeah. So you are, as I mentioned, one of the few people. Granted, you only played, at least what the stats say, 6 games, put up some great numbers, as you said, 1.52 GAA, 946 save percentage for the River Otters in the 99-2000 season. So the UHL existed from 91 to 2007. It started out as the Colonial Hockey League. I did a little research last night because I was interested. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I literally had to go through team by team. Do you know how many players played in the UHL and then still made it to the NHL after that? Do you have any idea?
Who made it to the NHL after that? Oh, geez. Yeah. I couldn't tell you. So,
believe it or not, there was 56 players. So you are one of 56, which I think that's pretty elite company. I have to ask, do you know any names that might be on that list?
Well, I think there's a bunch of guys that during the lockout actually played in the UHL. So I want to say Barrett Jackman's on that list. Ryan Johnson's on that list. Those are two, but I'm sure there was more from that year that were just trying to play some hockey while the lockout was happening.
So
Are you
those
getting
guys,
names off that list?
I didn't even include those guys because these are guys that played in the UHL first and then went to the NHL. So couple names. There's 56 players. Danny Lambert, Rich Perrant, Keith Aucoin, Pierre-Luc Letourneau-Leblond. I think you ended up playing with him in Columbus, correct? Maybe not.
I think he might have been a year after, maybe.
Okay. Chris Neal is one of them. Just a couple, and then just a slew of guys who played in 1 or 2 games. But I thought that was interesting. 56 guys. That's it. Went from the UHL to the NHL. So that's pretty elite company for you there, Curtis.
Yeah, I should have known the Chris Neal name, but because he's just down the road from me here, or grew up down the road from me. But yeah, that would slip my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to tell him that one. He'll be surprised to hear that, I'm sure. So so again, you play for the Blues 99-2000. You come up, play a couple games, but you stay with the organization, and you end up playing 2002-2003 for the Blues, which was strangely a historic year for St. Louis hockey, and that was the year the Blues used 7 goaltenders. So I'm sure you started the season, I believe, in Worcester. You and Reinhard Davis were down there. All of a sudden, there's injuries up in St. Louis's goal. You both come up, and then Davis is playing goal against, again, I think it was Columbus, and you have to jump in the first period after Reinhard Davis gets hurt. So at this point, this was in October 17th. So you go a couple weeks from training camp from being the number 4 goalie in the depth chart to number 1, and you have to play in your first game there against the Blue Jackets. You made 12 saves. Blues won 7-1. That had to be quite the nerve-wracking experience for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, we were just you just said I was in Worcester, so we were on a road trip up in Winnipeg playing the Manitoba Moose up there, and we just freshly got back, and I'm on the flight, and things happen so quickly, and you're just making sure that you're packing everything that you need. You're not forgetting your toothbrush or anything like that, and hopefully you're not missing your flight and that your equipment gets there when you need it. So there's so many things running through your head, not to mention the excitement of your first call up and going through that. But yeah, sitting on the bench, it's a lot different than exhibition games. This is the real thing. This is your best players against the other team's best players. And then Reinhard gets hurt, and all of a sudden you're just thrown in the fire. But that team was a special team. There were so many great and talented players that just rallied around the situation, made my life a lot easier, made me feel so welcome right away, and they really did a great job of insulating me and putting it all on the line every time I was in the net. It was a real fun time to play and to be on the ice and learn at the same time. It was a great experience.
I'm sure having guys like Chris Pronger, Al McInnes, and Barrett Jackman playing in front of you made you feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's even guys like Jeff Finley and Eric Weinrich and guys with so much experience and knowledge to pass along. And those first few games, I learned so much in those first few games from those guys that I took with me throughout the rest of my career, and it was just a fun time and fun time to play hockey, and especially with that team in St. Louis at that point in time, there's some great hockey players.
So I bet when you came on the show, when you agreed to come on, you didn't think you'd be doing trivia, which you've already done one trivia question. So I'm going to ask you one more. 7 goaltenders used that year. Who do you remember from that?
Okay, so Brent Johnson, Fred Brathwaite, Reinhard Davis, Tom Barrasso, Cody Rudkowski, Chris Osgood, Curtis Sanford.
That's impressive. Good for you. I was down in Dallas for work, and one of my friends had texted me and said, "Hey, we're talking about the year the Blues used 7 goalies." And they listed you and all the other guys, and they're like, "Who's the one we're missing?" And I was like, "Cody Rudkowski," and they were like, "Oh my God, how did you know that?" And I'm like, "That was just a year I'll never forget." How often do teams, and especially in the NHL, go cycle through 7 goalies in a year? I think Philadelphia had something similar recently, and St. Louis and Mike McKenna was one of them. But just a strange year all around, and I'm sure that was a very odd experience for you getting your first call up there so early in the season as the 4th man on the depth chart. So I wanted to go into, basically, you stay with the organization. You kind of, like you said, bounce around between Worcester. You were in Peoria for a while, and then obviously came up with St. Louis 2005, 2006. You started as the backup with Patrick Lalime as the number 1 man, but you ended up taking that job over. And now, granted, this was not a good year for St. Louis. This was a very tough year, but something that I was always told by opposing writers and fans of other teams was that this was the worst team they had ever seen, because games were still close. The defense wasn't terrible. You kind of kept them in it. I think lack of goal scoring was a problem, but would you agree with that you guys were maybe better than what the standings show?
Yeah, I think so. Like, again, that year I started out in Peoria. The team had just moved from Worcester to Peoria in the AHL, and I want to say the first 3 weeks I was playing for the Peoria Rivermen, the American League, and again I started out the year pretty good there again, and was just kind of waiting for an opportunity, which came quite early. And I think that opportunity came early because the team was pretty slow out of the gates that particular year. And maybe, it was the fact that, I was doing pretty well, and maybe it was just kind of giving me an opportunity to see where I was at, type of thing. And came in, and it was a point in my career where it was basically, I'm going to do this now, or I don't know if I'll get another shot to do this. So, it was just going there with a lot of intensity and in practice, and approaching each game as if it was the last game I was going to play, type of thing. And things worked out, but we had some great players again on that team, and again, just couldn't really find that, winning rhythm at any particular point in time where you could really go on a run. We'd play well for a few games, and then kind of we'd set ourselves back for a couple, and it was just really playing catch up that entire year. But overall, the team had a great nucleus of players that eventually come trade deadline, got shipped off to other teams and whatever. And Dougie Waite got to lift the cup with the Carolina Hurricanes that year, which was really exciting for him. But yeah, it was a good team for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I always thought, there'd be times we'd go to games and you guys would lose off a bad bounce in overtime or something weird. And it was always, man, they deserve to win that game. But again, you just the team just couldn't score that big goal to get the win. But always, I had fun with that team. It was fun watching. Again, taking over the job from Patrick Lalime, who was brought in to be the starter that year. You ended up playing in 34 games, 13-13-5, 266 GAA, 908 save percentage. So I wanted to ask you, because again, this kind of took over. You kind of took over the job there before getting injured. Did back when you were with the River Otters or the Owen Sound Platers, or did you ever think there'd be a chance, even if it was a last place team? Who cares? You were the starting goalie for an NHL team. Did you ever think that would be a possibility for you?
I never really thought that too far down the road. Obviously, being a goalie, being from Canada, the goal and the dream is to always playing the NHL, and and you're always playing for the Stanley Cup. But just the mere fact of playing the National Hockey League against the world's top players was, that was a dream come true. But there are some dark days where you go through the drafts and you don't get drafted, and it's just like, geez, where is this? Are my efforts going to be rewarded and all that stuff? But I just kind of took it as it came and just tried to make the most of every opportunity. And that being said, there's still some opportunities that were left out there by myself, and with the injuries and and those types of setbacks. I think if I were to have a redo, I'd definitely spend a lot more time with my body and making sure that my diet was right. But again, those are things hindsight's always 20/20 when you come to those things. But if there was redos, I definitely try and make sure that my health was was a priority, and not saying that it wasn't, but there was a string of bad luck at times, and to go back and have done a better job and taking care of those things, things might have been different too.
Yeah, that was we had Carlo Koliakovo on the show within the past couple months, and that was something that always kind of carried with him, was people calling him injury prone, and he kind of said, yeah, it's a tough stigma to carry around, and that was something again that kind of followed you, was the well, he's great, but he's going to get injured, and I'm sure as a player that probably has to be difficult to deal with, and I'm sure you probably always wanted to prove people wrong, right?
Yeah, it was always difficult to deal with, because you're in the off season and you're working hard, but are you necessarily working smart? And now with the things that guys have at the the resources that they have at their fingertips, it's a little bit easier to stay on track. But again, there's that self accountability, that ownership of what you're doing in the off season or even in season. Are you taking care of your own business? And and again, looking back, I could have done a better job at doing that. And that's something that I got to live with now. But at the same time, I was working hard, but was I necessarily working smart? Who knows?
So again, you were in St. Louis for a couple of years here, maybe bouncing back between with the AHL teams. But what area of St. Louis were you in? Do you remember?
Yeah, I lived in St. Charles. It was a great area. We enjoyed our time there, and we had a nice little condo there, and it wasn't an easy or short drive to downtown, but we liked the area that St. Charles provided us, for sure.
Were you so pretty close, I would guess, to the family arena where the River Otters played, right?
Yeah. I think that was maybe a 3-minute drive away from where we stayed, and it always brought back fond memories driving past the old family arena there.
Oh, of course, yeah. So what was your favorite place to go eat, go get a drink? Do you remember any places that you kind of frequented?
I always liked Charlie Gito's, actually, and that was a place that when I was on visiting teams, I made sure that I visited with some teammates that might not have ever eaten there, and they always enjoyed the food there. So yeah, Charlie's was a good spot.
Unfortunately, I believe Charlie Gito just passed away, so that's a timely reference. But great spot for sure. I've always loved Charlie Gito's as well. So again, you played with the Blues for a while, but had fond memories there in St. Charles. How often do you make it back here?
You know what? We have not been back since we left, and the funny thing is, we had our second boy down in St. Louis. So he's an American born. He's a U.S. citizen born in St. Louis, but we haven't made it back down there. But just where we are with our family right now, probably just wait a little bit longer to do a little tour of all the old places that I played. And St. Louis is definitely number one on our list, and we talk about it frequently, about how much we loved it there. And amongst our stays throughout our playing career, my playing career, that's St. Louis is number one on that list for places to live. And I know a lot of guys still call that home that I played with, or that, played before and now after. So, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to play. It's such a sports driven community. They really rally around all their teams, no matter if, the teams are winning or losing. There's always been that really good support.
Yeah, and that's coming from a guy who saw probably the arena as empty as it's ever been in St. Louis. But the people who did show up, and then obviously people watching on TV, were passionate. And I'm sure as a player that probably meant a lot to you.
Oh, absolutely. It's always fun to have, passionate supporting fans. I think it goes a long way. I think it's underrated and sometimes undervalued, in terms of how people see it. But it has such an impact on how the players feel and how they play. And, it goes a long way. And playing in those, or in the arena there, Scottrade, when it was, it was Scottrade when I was playing there anyways, but when it was full, it ranked among the loudest places, that I've ever played in. And, to see them, have their wish granted last summer. And, it was fun to watch for sure.
So again, you played with, and getting across your entire NHL career, I'm sure there's even more, but you played with veterans like Doug Wade, Keith Tkachuk, Bill Guerin, Martin Ruchinsky, Eric Brewer, Jamie Rivers. The list just goes on. There was a very strong veteran presence in the mid 2000s. And what do you think you took away the most from playing with guys like that?
I just remember it being such a welcoming and kind of family oriented team to be around. The organization, it was always a family first type of attitude, and that started with Larry Plow. And so grateful to Larry about the opportunity that he gave to me. But I think just he instilled that that we were family. And the wives were got along so well with each other. And I remember the Tkachuk boys, they'd be down in the dressing room playing with their mini hockey guys. And, it was just always so welcoming. And I remember that, if there's anything I was going to take on through my, playing career, was no matter who it was, how young the guy was, rookies, veterans, I was going to make sure that, they are always welcome, and that, there wasn't anybody that you were too good for or above. And I think that's something really important that I took from that particular organization and those particular teams.
So someone that you ended up welcoming into the locker room in your later years in St. Louis was a young David Ciss. And he's still, after the Bruins series last year, I'm not sure how people feel, but I believe he's still fondly loved here in St. Louis by most people. What was he like as a young man entering the NHL, if you remember?
What I remember of Bax was he was very mature for his age, and he was extremely driven, extremely focused, and to step in the way he did and play the way that he did that early in his career was, he didn't play like a first year player or someone that was, a sophomore. He came in, he worked hard on the ice. He worked just as hard off the ice. And I think Keith Tkachuk was a huge mentor for him, especially in those early years, and kind of got him on the right path. But I think David would have been on the right path as it was. He was just a true leader in every sense. Pretty much right out of the gate, he set a good tone.
So again, you move on from St. Louis, you play in Vancouver, backing up Roberto Luongo, move on to playing in the Montreal organization with Hamilton behind because of Montreal having Yaroslav Halak and Carey Price, and a lot of people remember that crazy playoff run they had with both of them in net. and of course Columbus. You went there as well. But I wanted to ask you specifically about your time at Hamilton, which is the AHL affiliate for Montreal. So you played in St. Louis. You get the starting job at a point. Play in Vancouver, which was a very good team at the time. But you go on to Montreal, and you're playing behind two guys that probably aren't going anywhere. The only way you're going to be able to get time is likely if there's an injury. So the mindset of a guy like you, again, a guy who's been a starter, a guy who's been a backup in the NHL, played with some great goalies already. Now you're kind of stuck as the third man behind Halak and Price. What does that do to your mindset as a goaltender?
Well, I think at that particular point in time, it was really a crossroads at that point. It was, I was coming from 2 years where, you're playing behind basically the best goalie in the world at that particular time in Roberto Luongo, and your starts are going to be minimal. Your playing time, it's not going to be great. And, I don't know, with my age at that point as well, 27, 28 years old, I just wanted to play in the NHL. And so, the crossroads was, do I want to continue trying to play in the NHL, or do I want to start thinking about heading overseas? And I wasn't at the point in my career where I wanted to give up the NHL dream. And so I signed with Montreal, knowing full well that, I'm going to be a third guy here. It's going to take, an injury or a trade or something for me to get some time. But my focus was actually, becoming a leader. We had some great young, talented players, Max Pacioretty, PK Subban, David Desharnais, Chris Russell, some great young players. Sorry, Ryan Russell, that, I could provide some leadership to, some stability in the net at the AHL level. And again, a young coach in Guy Boucher who was really excitable. And I thought for a year it was probably going to be a good spot for me to be, just to kind of work on my game, get a lot more playing time that I hadn't really gotten the previous 2 years before that, and to provide some experience and some leadership. And so that's kind of how I took that time in Hamilton and with the Montreal Canadiens. Again, another great organization to be with. And we had some good teams, some great playoff runs, and it all worked out in the end. But it allowed me to take on more of a leadership role and have that experience as well.
So again, you're the starter in Hamilton. You play 40, 41 games typically the 2 years you're in Hamilton. And again, you came off playing, like you said, behind Roberto Luongo. And in your time in Vancouver, you saw limited time. So 16 games and 19 games in Vancouver, plus a little time in Manitoba, the AHL affiliate. What do you prefer as a goalie, going back to that mindset you were in? Did you prefer you were in the NHL, but you weren't playing a lot? Or did you prefer being in the AHL, getting all the time you could handle and trying to prove yourself to get back to the NHL?
Yeah, again, it's a tough question to answer. It's a great question, but it's a tough answer at the same time, because you do want to be in the NHL. And again, as a 27, 28-year-old player, are you going to get another chance? And so at that particular time, I was just basically rolling the dice, to be honest. Did I want to be in the NHL? Of course, who doesn't? But I knew I needed to play. And I knew that in order to kind of get my game, back to where it needed to be, I needed to play. So that was basically, the roll of the dice that it took. And at the end, it worked out because I got another opportunity in Columbus a year after. But you're always thinking, geez, am I going to make it back? And, there's some struggles and there's some tough moments, but I think just keeping my head straight and just working and actually being a mentor to some young players, I think helped keep me grounded, and their enthusiasm around the rink helped keep me in a place where I continued to improve and eventually make it back.
So again, you made it to Columbus, and then after that, you talked about possibly going overseas. Well, then you did. You signed with Lokomotiv Yaroslavl in 2012, and of course, that's the team that when people hear the name, they remember the tragic plane crash in September of 2011, which claimed the lives of such great players as Pavel Demitra and Igor Korolev. But you signed with Lokomotiv as they kind of rebuilt that team. It was 2 seasons after the crash, but it was the first full season for the club to return and play a full season. That had to be strange, right? I mean, you're kind of taking on the mantle of this team that was all lost at once, unfortunately. You're going to a city that dealt with this tragedy. That had to be a very, very weird situation for you, but I'm sure, putting on the jersey and getting on the ice, did it just become, getting back to work, and that's the kind of thing you didn't think about when you're on the rink, or was it something that was always in the back of your mind?
You're always constantly thinking of it, especially that first year, actually. And just taking it back, I remember waking up that morning, the morning of that crash, and not believing it, and sitting there preparing to go to an NHL training camp, and reading the news that all these fantastic people, these fantastic hockey players had just lost their lives, and what their families were going through, what the communities were going through, just such a loss, and such a heavy time. So fast forward to signing, I didn't think twice about it, but you don't really know the heaviness of it until I actually made it into the city, and all the people there, and just how grateful they were to have to have their team back, but also knowing that it wasn't the team that they typically remembered from a couple years back. So we were brought into to bring something back to that community, and that was something that we had to carry. That was a responsibility that we had to carry, and I think heading into not only every practice but every game, and you're walking through the same doors that these great men walk through just a couple of years before you. You had to carry that, and it was a phenomenal experience. And the people in Yaroslavl and the people throughout Russia, and how they welcomed our team in every stop along the way, it was incredible. No matter if you were in the middle of Siberia playing a game, you had Lokomotiv supporters there, and it's just something you'll never forget. You'd be walking down the street, and just random people would be coming up and saying thank you, obviously in Russian, but embracing you and hugging you, and it was an unbelievable experience, and something that I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was a tough situation for anyone who was a hockey fan, and seeing that you signed there afterward, I'm sure that was a very strange experience. But let's bring up the positive vibes here. I wanted to ask you about, you played again for a lot of great goalies. You played beside. Who do you think you learned the most from? Whether it was at your time in the NHL or even when you went over to Russia and played for Lokomotiv.
Well, you're just learning so much. You're taking in so much information on a daily basis. You're learning so much on a daily basis. Whether it's the general managers that brought you in, your head coaches, your goalie coaches. I took a lot from Roberto Luongo, honestly, and just watching him on a daily basis, how he went about his business, but also the responsibility that he had in Vancouver. He was not only, the greatest goalie in the league. He acted as the greatest goalie in the league at that time every day. He didn't take a day for granted. There was no days off in his mind. He was always out to accomplish something, no matter what day it was. And the responsibility of the leadership that he took on with that group. And it's a tough city to play in. Vancouver is not an easy city to play in, let alone play goal in. So I took a lot from him and how he managed his game, how he managed his daily business, but how passionate he was about the game and how passionate he was about his teammates. And that's something that, I remember fondly of Roberto, and it has nothing to do with how he played in the net. It just had everything to do with his approach and his passion.
So he's become a beloved figure on social media, Strombone1 on Twitter. Was he a goofy guy in the locker room? Did you get to see that side of him, or was it always kind of business as usual for him in the locker room?
Oh, he was a riot. He knew the pulse of the room. It could be, the biggest game of the year, or the morning of the biggest game of the year, or something like that, and he'd have something smart to remark and just kind of lighten the mood. But he also knew, when it was crunch time and time to get down to business. But he managed himself very well that way, and it's an amazing type of demeanor that you need to have, that mental ability to know, what's needed at any particular moment. And again, I look at a guy who has that mental makeup, and he's playing in St. Louis right now, Jordan Binnington. It's very similar. Their approaches, they're, under that mask, it's business-like, but they're intelligent men who know what to say at the right times and know how to deliver.
So again, bringing the focus back to you move on from the NHL in terms of playing and obviously from the Yaroslavl team. You go on to become a player development goaltending consultant with Utica, that's Vancouver's AHL affiliate. So you work with Ryan Johnson there, former Blue, and now he is the GM over there in Utica. I find that always find that kind of interesting. You play with a guy for a couple of years in St. Louis. Now all of a sudden you're working together. I don't know if technically he's considered your boss or not, but what's that like working with Ryan Johnson?
Well, Ryan, he's extremely passionate about the game, and what I remember and what he brings to work with him is a strong work ethic and that passion. And not only that, he cares so deeply about, the people that he works with and works for, that, he gets the best out of people. And, we all want to do our job, and we all want to do it well. And I don't think there's any other way you can really approach work anyways. But he has a really good influence on us as coaches, and he has a really good influence on the players as well. And just that background and kind of what he went through in his career and how he made it, and and his struggles, his setbacks. I think they're all things that you can bring to work, and you can have it be relatable to what coaches are going through and what players are going through at any particular time. I think it's he understands that and he applies that. So it's been a really good environment to work in. Working for Ryan, he is definitely my boss, or one of my bosses. So yeah, you're correct. But just what he's been able to do, with our coaching staff and just making it a really enjoyable environment, but an environment where, it's about hard work and making each other better.
So again, Curtis Sanford, known as the Sandman, and I actually did want to ask you about that, Curtis. We've heard of players in the NHL getting nicknames and just not liking them. I mean, I've played hockey my whole life. I know we've given off nicknames. It's kind of a thing in hockey. I've given it to people that did not enjoy the nickname, but we called them that anyway. Did you always embrace the name, the Sandman?
Yeah, I did. And Steve Plow came up with that nickname, and it's basically, I just ran with it. Steve was an assistant coach at the Worcester Ice Cats, and he just started calling me it. And then all of a sudden, players were calling me it, and Donnie Granado was calling me that. So it just kind of stuck, and I went with it, and used that theme in my masks, and just played around with it, and it did, and just embraced it. And it's a cool nickname, but it's something that you can definitely play with in terms of actual artistry on masks and whatever. So it kind of worked well.
Yeah, it did. So again, Curtis Sanford, he is now the player development goaltending consultant with Utica of the AHL. Again, want to thank you very much for coming on, Curtis. Is there any way that people can interact with you personally on social media, or anything like that? Anything that and if there's any, I don't know, goaltending videos that you share on social media, anything like that people can interact with you?
Yeah, no, not really. I don't have, I don't have a Facebook thing. Like I do have a Twitter handle, but the stuff that it's just basically for news. I don't necessarily put anything on there. I don't put any goaltending videos on there, but it's hard. It's hard to track me down at times, but Twitter's probably the easiest place, I guess. But again, it's really seldomly used.
Yeah, I hear you. So again, wanted to thank you for coming on, Curtis, and we will definitely be watching your career, and hopefully we'll be seeing you as a goaltending consultant in the NHL one day. But thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
What are you doing? Why are you watching me right now? Don't you know you can be podcasting Let's Go Blues Radio right now and check out an interview about somebody who's a prospect in the organization? What are you doing? Why are you watching me? Get out of here. Go.